And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Thursday evening. Wanted to be out there for you guys on the West Coast or internationally. We'll get back to our 9 o'clock schedule tomorrow, so be sure to join us for that one. But for the second night in a row, we're going to get a little bit of a late start. Wanted to enjoy some Thursday night football, and boy, oh boy, was it a barn burner. Well, put it this way. An ugly game that turned out with an uglier finish for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I digress. Still had a good day overall. Cashed a few parlays, so I'm pretty happy overall. So let's get into some Major League Baseball. We had a few different transactions today. The Braves end up signing the closer, Suarez, to a 3-year, $45 million deal. Sounds like he's going to be the setup man out there in Atlanta. Raisel Iglesias looks like he will still hold on to the closing role. They also made the addition of Yastrzemski. So they're the ones that are spending so far this offseason, at least signing a few of these mid-tier guys. So we'll see if this starts to unclog the dam a little bit. We usually try to see some of this stuff at the winter meetings. Obviously, it didn't get done. Winter meetings are kind of thing of the past, just like Black Friday is nowadays, unfortunately. But hopefully this gets things rolling in advance of Christmas. Usually you see a little bit of activity. Some of the top guys usually come off before we get to the Christmas break because that's when players really want to know how their next year is going to set up for them. So expect a flurry of activity over the next couple of weeks. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe and be here whenever something does happen. We will be live for you guys. But I really do appreciate you guys joining us once again. Ethan, welcome back. Rangers are so busy this offseason, I can't take it. Yeah, they've been kind of moving a little bit slower than they have in recent years anyway. You look back to the COVID year, they were the ones that kind of acted a little bit quicker. You get to the lockout years, or to the when the league basically locked the doors on the players for a short period of time anyway. The Rangers were the ones that got some deals done before that clock struck zero. So we'll see if they ultimately are one of the teams that acts a little bit quicker here, since teams are acting with a lethargic pace, we'll call it. We certainly have seen no shortage of trade rumors, specifically around Ketel Marte and the Arizona Diamondbacks. We'll start there today. Ketel Marte has seen his name basically in every single major market in sports right now. Boston, you bet. Philadelphia has had some conversations. New York's kicked the tires on it. Toronto's at least checked in on it. And now we get the reports that the Tampa Bay Rays, of course, are in the discussion because, heck, why not? I thought the Rays were kind of also ran in this discussion when it came to Ketel Marte, because are they going to really part with those top-end prospects that they like to keep, in their grasp? Well, for a player like Ketel Marte, who's got 5 years of control, I can see the wisdom of stepping out here and changing your formula for this type of a player. He is a difference-making player. The rumors are that Pipio and Baz have been discussed in a trade involving Ketel Marte. Whether that's enough or too much, too little, we'll see what the ultimate trade package ultimately turns out to be from wherever he goes. But it's very interesting to see the Rays in there, and at least players being bandied about in those discussions as well. Ethan, you want to see the Rangers sign fan favorite Framber Valdez? We've seen no shortage of rumors about him as well. Think about the Baltimore Orioles after getting the deal done with Pete Alonso. Who was the first team to have some major news coming out about who they were trying to target? It was the Baltimore Orioles and their discussions with Framber Valdez. Before we got to the winter meetings, we had discussions about there being a signing with the San Francisco Giants. So he's got a nice market out there. I thought that the character concerns would be a little bit of an issue. Ultimately, I don't think they'll be an impediment from him getting the money that he deserves. But I think it's at least a talking point whenever he gets into these meetings with teams. Hey, are you going to be a knucklehead, or are you good? Just want to make sure that you don't got a few screws loose that we can't exactly tolerate on our ball club. Are you going to be a problem in the clubhouse? Are you not? Those are the kind of questions you never want to hear asked if you're an agent or a player in free agency. And unfortunately, because of the concerns that teams now have after he threw out his catcher this year, that's now something he has to at least address. Not saying it's going to cost him money, but it might take a team or two, some extra time here to really get comfortable with the idea of paying him that kind of money, and in which case other teams might ultimately outbid them. So we'll see where Framber Valdez goes. I would probably rule out the possibility of Houston. I still think the money could work out there, but I think with so many teams willing to pay at the top of the market, like the Giants and what appears to be the Baltimore Orioles, the Mets, I'm sure, will look at some starters. The Cubs are going to be in discussion as well. We'll see where he goes, but I think Houston's probably got to be seen as a long shot at this point. Welcome in Cobra. Welcome in Sean. If y'all want Cronenworth, we need pitchers. Well, I'll put it this way. Cronenworth is a league average player. He's a versatile player, yes. Not necessarily a glove-first player, so he's not necessarily a plus defensively, but he at least can do it adequately. And he's about, a 246 hitter over his career, or at least at this point in his career. Maybe he gets a little bit better over the next couple of years. Maybe he gets a little worse. But I think if you're looking for, a steady option in your lineup, I think Cronenworth would be your guy. Now, for 5 years and $60 million, is he worth it to be your guy? That's where I have the issue, and I think the Padres are going to find it tough sell trying to move on from Jake Cronenworth. I do think there's ways that they could do it. In fact, after we got off the stream last night, I was kind of positing some trades to the San Diego Padres. We keep hearing about them being in on something massive. Preller came out today and kind of threw ice water all over that with Tatis and so forth, basically just saying we're not trading Tatis, he's not going anywhere. Of course, take that with a grain of salt. You're never going to say we're openly going to be looking to trade our best player. But I do think there's some truth to that. I think the time to trade him was a couple of years ago. I think that's when you could have convinced A.J. Preller to move on from him. At this point, I don't see them moving him at all. I think they're going to keep him and Merrill together for a decade. So we'll see what happens. But as far as Cronenworth goes, I was kind of playing with some trade ideas. There are some trades that work that the Rangers could do to take on the money of Cronenworth. I know you're like, wait, aren't the Rangers trying to get rid of money? Well, hear me out. The Padres have several great bullpen options to work with. Some that have 3, 4, 5 years left to control. David Morgan, you have Jason Adams who's on an expiring deal, Morahone. They just made the trade for Miller. They've got some really high quality, high leverage arms back there, even after losing Suarez. If they were to make a trade, say if they were trying to offload Cronenworth's salary, if they attached a guy like, say, Jason Adam, who also still has a slight negative, of course, according to baseball trade rumors, they could find a way to make that trade work. The Rangers could justify it by saying, hey, now we have our second base fill-in for, half the cost of what Marcus Semien was. We're for a very similar production, maybe a little bit less in the home run department, but very similar overall. Not necessarily the glove that Semien was, but offensively should be very comparable. Understandably, it's 5 years that you're going to be paying him $12 million, but you're also getting a very strong relief arm out of it, maybe two, depending on what you send back the other way. If you just take Cronenworth and one of the relievers, I think if you throw back some pocket change going back the other way, it would essentially work out in a trade. If you sent, say, a Josh Smith the other direction, then you'd be talking about something a little bit more serious. Do you get one of their better relief arms? Do you get one of their elite relief arms? I don't think you're getting Miller, but I do think there's a way that you could get two different relievers like Morahone and Adam out of that system if you take on the contract of Cronenworth. But we shall see. Cronenworth is a average glove. If you look at his defensive metrics, he's okay. His best characteristic is his versatility, and in that respect, I will agree with you. He is awesome at the ability to do all kinds of different things. Ethan, can you do a mock trade of Sean Murphy and $15 million to Texas? That's actually what his negative value is right now, according to baseball trade values as well. You could just mock that up as well. Welcome back, Lucas. I thought we'd do a late one for you. I was wondering when you'd be able to get in. Appreciate you joining us. I think you'll trade Seager. No, I think he's staying at this point. I think the smoke has died out. It's done. I don't think he's going anywhere. But as far as Murphy and $15 million, that's about equal there. I don't think the Braves are looking to offload salary. They can still look to add another $40 million salary to get up to that top 5 in the game as far as payroll. That's where their front office has said they want to be by the end of this offseason, is they want to be a top 5 payroll in the game. I don't think they're looking to move on from Sean Murphy just to kind of save money here. I think they think last year was a down year, and they're hoping for a nice rebound season for him. I don't think that they necessarily need to jettison him to kind of save some money there in order to spend it elsewhere. I just doubt that's the way the Braves are thinking at this point. Especially you look at what they've done so far this offseason. They filled a couple of holes by spending some money here in Yastrzemski and Suarez. They still need to add a starter to me, and they still need to go after one of the better shortstops in the game. My idea, of course, before we got to the winter meetings was Corey Seager. Obviously, that has now got a bunch of cold water on it. Maybe they are the team that lands a C.J. Abrams, but we shall see. Been pretty good. Took a few months off, just kind of spend time with the family, and just got back into gear anyway, end of last week, or I can't remember if I started Saturday or Sunday. But anyway, we're back. We're going to be live every single weekday around 9 o'clock. Usually we'll try to do one or two late streams during the week as well for our international audience, for our audience on the West Coast as well, to try to incorporate everybody. When we do those, we'll try to make up for some of our East Coast audience by having an earlier stream at some point, probably on the weekends, probably around 5, 6, 7 o'clock, so we shall see. John, welcome back. Will Cashman make a move this month? He's going to make several moves this month. I understand it's frustrating watching the Yankees see all these other guys sign. Their free agents become more and more valuable in the market as the Mets lose their players. You know that the Mets are going to try to steal former Yankees players. It seemed to be the formula for, the last few years now anyway. Heck, their manager, former Yankee. I think there's a good chance we see a Luke Weaver or a Bellinger signing with the Mets. Then you have more question marks around the New York Yankees. Who do they ultimately sign? Do they go international for Murakami? All kinds of different ways they can go, but do not expect them to sit idly by. One other signing that we did see today was Hobie Milner going to the Chicago Cubs. That's the second arm they have stolen from the Texas Rangers bullpen this offseason. Both of those arms were very good last year. Phil Maton signed a 2-year, $14.5 million, I believe, was the deal he signed with the Chicago Cubs, and now they get Hobie Milner for about $3.25, I believe. On a 1-year deal. Rangers did have interest in bringing him back. They do have another guy very similar to him in their minor league system. I think it would have been a little bit redundant to bring back Milner anyway, but he was very good for Texas, which is why they wanted him back. Ultimately, it's not going to happen. So we'll see where Texas goes. The bullpen, there's basically their entire bullpen needs to be reworked outside of Robert Garcia, and I'm not convinced if they found a competitive trade offer. Say if the Padres wanted a reliever back with some control, if they were giving like a 2-for-1 kind of a deal, say you got a Morahone and a Adam out of the Padres. Garcia technically has more value on baseball trade values because he's got the longer term deal, the control, those kinds of things, which is why the value essentially would be 2-for-1. Would it work out better for the Padres? I'm not sure it necessarily would. To me, you're giving up two better relievers. The peripheral numbers around Adam didn't necessarily look great, even though the ERA looked very nice. But I think if you're getting two linchpins to your bullpen in that type of a move, I could see the possibility of them moving on from Robert Garcia. But I think that's kind of the last resort option if they are adamant about getting him in return for a deal for a player that you really value. So we shall see. We also saw the A's sign another reliever. Mark Leiter Jr. goes to the A's. I think he's going to be a good setup guy. I think he's going to be a kind of exactly what they need in that bullpen. They did lose Miller in the offseason, or excuse me, at the trade deadline when they dealt him to the Padres. So there is some room back there. Leclerc is no longer there after he signed a one-year deal last year. So hopefully this is a improvement off of where they finished last year. Andrew, welcome back. Cowboys Nation. Appreciate you guys joining us once again. What else do you think the Phillies do this offseason? I think they're going to bring back Real Muto. I think they're going to run it back with Suarez. I think they're going to try being the key word, to make some smaller improvements around this roster. There have been some discussions about them being the team to go after a Tarek Skubal. I seriously doubt that. Ketel Marte, seriously doubt that. Alex Bregman, completely 100% doubt that one. But I do think they're going to have their hands in the cookie jar of a lot of these things that we aren't expecting. But ultimately, I think they're going to fall flat on their face, and they'll just do the small tinkering around the edges that we saw last year with Max Kepler and others. Zeke for Sean Murphy, I could see that one. I agree. That one would be a decent trade. But I'd rather have Zeke as my kind of a backup second baseman, corner outfield, arm, that kind of a thing. Plus, he's also insurance for whenever Corey Seager goes down due to injury. With Marcus Semien gone, unless they sign a second baseman, I think that Zeke is very valuable to this team as currently constructed. They should add somebody in that mix at some point, would be my guess, once they jettison one or two of these players off of this roster in a deal, but we shall see. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on the whole Notre Dame thing? We'll start with them being left out of the college football playoff. I thought it was a mistake. I thought Alabama should have been the team left out first and foremost. But of course, college football playoffs is going to make sure they're in there. I will say this. Alabama did play a lot of more ranked teams. Because they're in the SEC, they always get that SEC pull, and understandably, I still think the SEC is still, for now, the best conference. But even still, 3 losses, and they weren't exactly pretty. I would put it this way. They would have been my first team out. Notre Dame would have been in their spot ahead of Miami. I think that both of those teams are worse than what Notre Dame did this year. As far as the Michigan stuff, boy, oh boy, what a story that has turned into. Just really sad situation there. Surprised it didn't get found out sooner with him paying somebody on the staff double what everybody else was making. Kind of a red flag there if you're somebody in the HR department or payroll. Wouldn't somebody have noticed that a lot sooner? But unfortunately didn't happen. As far as Notre Dame basically saying I'm not playing in a bowl game, I think that's about time some team stands up for this. We've talked about this, probably 15, 20 times over the last 30 years about teams holding themselves out of bowl games as a, kind of a protest against the playoff or bowl game situation, whatever it may be. And I think this is the right time for them to do so. I get it that they're not in a conference. I get that they were unhappy with the ACC commissioner or chair basically advocating for Miami. I get their disgruntlement about that. But in the end, their football team is not in that conference. His job is to advocate for his team. Of course, he could have said something, kind about the Notre Dame team in regards to that as well, but didn't happen. They are business partners, and I think that could sour the relationship between the ACC and Notre Dame long term. But we'll see where things go. Let's try to catch up on a few more of these comments here. Cobra, only Tucker, Marte, and Skubal are the only big names left. Well, Marte and Skubal are trade guys. Bellinger, Tucker, to me, are the big guys on the free agency side of things. Of course, you got some starting pitching still out there with Valdez and others. but there are several names that are still to go. And I think we're still very early in this year's offseason. Now, we've had a couple of moves before we even got to the winter meetings that really got the ball rolling with Dylan Cease and others. At the winter meetings, we get Schwarber, we get Diaz. Alonso gets signed by the Baltimore Orioles. So we're seeing some activity. Trade activity has been way less than what I thought it was going to be with as much rumblings as we've been hearing. So hopefully that dam breaks sometime this weekend. We shall see. You think Tucker stays with the Cubs? I don't think they have the money to do it. I just flat don't think they do. Yankees are open to dealing Jazz Chisholm. I just don't see why they should do that. I think there's a lot of other things they need to consider before that. Miami should have been left out in your opinion. I still think it should have been Alabama. 3 losses speak volumes. The margin of victory, the margin of defeat really matters to me. The first 2 games that they lost were the first 2 games, or the 2 games Notre Dame lost were the first 2 games of the season by a combined total of 4 points. One of them was to the team that's already in the playoff in Miami. But as far as Alabama goes, their losses, some of those losses were absolutely atrocious. Some of their wins were far better than anything Notre Dame had. The only downside I will say about Notre Dame is they didn't really play anybody after those first 2 games. They didn't really beat anybody over the last 5-6 games, which doesn't exactly put you in the best light when it comes to the college football committee, playoff committee anyway, but I don't think it should come down to that anyway. I think these things, if you have them 10th going into the final week, they win their game, the other team loses, and yet still jumps you, that doesn't make sense. So, all right, Cubs will only re-sign Tucker to a 1-year deal, possibly, but Tucker ain't taking a 1-year deal. There is the possibility, like we discussed last night, about Tucker going to the Dodgers on a massive 3 or 4 year deal, say $50 or $45 million annually, with, of course, all kinds of deferred money in there. That's always a possibility. But, speaking of the Dodgers, kind of the biggest story I heard today was about the possibility of them moving on from Tyler Glasnow. And you're like, wait, what? And then it made more sense when about 30 minutes later, you get the headline, Skubal being targeted and discussed by the Los Angeles Dodgers. Do I think it'll happen? No, I don't. But like we discussed in our previous videos, if the Dodgers bowl them over and give them Shohei Ohtani and their entire prospect pool and pay down the entire contract of Shohei, of course the Tigers are going to take that deal and trade Tarek Skubal in a second and kick him out the door on the way just so they can get that package. That package ain't coming, though. But a very good one could be. They certainly have the prospects to get it done. And if you're getting a controllable starting pitcher like Tyler Glasnow back, that makes things very interesting. Now, if you're other teams in the league and you're talking about them possibly adding Tarek Skubal to Snell, Yamamoto, Ohtani, and others, that's one lethal rotation. Possibly some of the 5 best pitchers in the game in that rotation. Honestly, they already were the best rotation in the game to me going into this year. Obviously, if they add Skubal, they're even better. Back-to-back Cy Young Award winner. I think that would be devastating for the rest of baseball. You talk about them possibly ruining baseball. That would certainly ruin it for me. I think it's not very likely to happen, but the fact that the rumors came out today about Tyler Glasnow possibly being the name that goes out, that kind of took me by surprise. Glasnow has been very consistent for them. Was one of their first real big additions before they kind of really started going, crazy with the spending. And he's been great for them. I'm just surprised to see him with his name being out there. But for Skubal, I get it. We shall see. Andrew, I think the Padres should trade Alec Boehm and play Miller at third, and Crawford should play in center. I think Crawford should get time in center this year, one way or the other. I just don't think Boehm has nearly the trade value Phillies fans think he does. And, if you're trying to offload some salary, I could see that a little bit there. But this is a team that's trying to compete for a World Series. They just signed Kyle Schwarber and are likely to sign Real Muto and Suarez because of their intractable payroll situation. Sure, they could move on Boehm for a little bit of relief here and get some young guys up there, some experience. But this is a team that's trying to win. And Dombrowski isn't about to flip Boehm for some prospects at this point. Starling Marte would be a nice platoon in Texas. 270 hitter last year, destroys lefty pitchers. That's kind of the guy I really have circled right now in free agency. He shouldn't cost a whole heck of a lot. I think he could command probably $7 or $8 million in the free agent market right now, and I think Texas would be great to go after him. So we'll see. Ian Happ to the Dodgers is getting no press, but Ian Happ is the top outfielder available, and the Cubs are listening. I would pump the brakes on that just a little bit. To me, Buxton is a little bit better player. Of course, has the health risks, but with 3 years of control left on Buxton, I believe it's 3 years, 2 or 3 years. But either way, I would rather have Byron Buxton. I think his abilities, um, how do I put this? Before all the injuries, when he was coming up, there was conversation about him being as talented or more talented than Mike Trout. Obviously, injuries happen, misses time, all those kinds of things. Never really got to that level. But when he's on the field, he certainly looks like kind of like Mike Trout when he was at his best. Now, I'm not saying he is Mike Trout at his best, but I'm saying the potential is there for a truly special season coming from Byron Buxton. Ian Happ doesn't have that same ceiling. I mean, I really like the player. I think he's going to be fantastic. Really love him in the outfield. I would love him on my favorite team, the Texas Rangers. But I would rather have Byron Buxton between the two. Now, I do think the Twins are going to be open for business this offseason as they were at the deadline. I think they will trade at least one of those starting pitchers, Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez, because the price is being so high for starting pitching. But I think they could command a king's ransom as a result. Buxton has the no trade, and I think once those pitchers start to go, he's going to be like, all right, I love Minnesota, but I'm trying to win at this point in my career. Send me somewhere where I can win, and I think it'll get done. But I do love Ian Happ. Now, as far as him going specifically to the Dodgers, they are canvassing all kinds of different outfielders right now to improve. We talked about Kyle Tucker. That would kind of be the coup de grace moment of the offseason for them if they're able to get him for a corner outfield spot. We talked about them possibly moving on from Teoscar Hernandez. A couple of different teams have kicked the tires on him, specifically the Kansas City Royals, who just signed Lane Thomas today to a one-year deal, I believe in the neighborhood of around $5 million. I think that probably cools the Jets on Teoscar Hernandez to Kansas City, but there are several other teams who could use a cost-controlled guy like Teoscar Hernandez, who's under contract for a few more years and should be able to give them some nice production in the outfield. Is he Shohei Ohtani? No, but he certainly still has the ability to be a very good bat in anybody's lineup, and if they're looking to upgrade in their outfield, Teoscar Hernandez might be the casualty going out. So we shall see. Brenton Doyle's another name, like you mentioned there, Andrew. I like that idea. What team would land him if the Rockies trade him? That's a hard one to really figure because the Rockies aren't going anywhere. I mean, they're going nowhere fast, and it's just rough right now in Colorado. I mean, if it's not nailed down, like literally the guy's going through Tommy John or has $150 million left on his deal, and they can't get him on the field for more than 20 games a season, Chris Bryant. I think they should be looking to trade literally everything. The only person I'm not trading probably is Chase Dollander. He's the one piece I really like. And then Tovar, the shortstop. I let those two guys kind of be the face of my team for the next few years. Outside of that, I'm listening on literally everybody else. There's some prospects down in the minors. Of course, I'm not moving my prospects. But if they're on the big league roster, anybody in that bullpen, fair game. You guys want a closer? Seth Halverson's sitting there for you. Vodnik is out there as well. There's a couple guys the Rockies could move. Goodman behind the plate. I know he had a great year, has control as well. I'd be looking to get a high price for him. A lot of teams need catching. Offense is a rarity behind the plate. He gives it to you. Who knows what he's going to do next year as well behind the plate. But we'll see. The Rockies just need to trade literally everything that they can and recoup as many assets and just kind of go forward from there. They have a new brain trust there. DePodestas came over from the Cleveland Browns at one point. He's back in baseball, but it's going to take him some time to get his systems in order there. They have a new GM as well. I think it's just a sad situation, and it's going to take a few years until I can look at this Rockies team and really judge what they've done to build. They aren't going to be in the playoffs this year. They're not going to be in the playoffs in the lockout season in 27. I doubt they're anywhere in 28. So 29 looks like the earliest they could contend. So trade literally anything that's not nailed down. If I was the Mets, I'd trade everything I got for Skubal. Everything. I wouldn't. He's got 1 year left. Of course, you could try to sign him long term. But for me, I love the young pitchers they got going. I love them. Jonah Tong looks like he's going to be a special player. Sproat looks like a nice one. They got a couple of good young outfielders that they could go to as well. For me, I'm not trading those prospects. I know they're prospects. You want to go after a surefire thing. You're supposed to win. You just got rid of all your fan favorites. You got rid of Pete Alonso. You got rid of Edwin Diaz as well. Brendan Nimmo is now gone. You need to earn some goodwill from the fan base. You earn goodwill by spending in free agency. Now, of course, they weren't willing to spend at first base as we saw with Pete Alonso, but what about them bringing in Murakami over there for third base? What about them going after a Cody Bellinger from the crosstown rival New York Yankees? I think those would be two really nice moves from an offensive standpoint. But as far as pitching, I agree that's their biggest need. They need at least two high-quality arms. They need an ace and a number two. If they can find somebody to take on Manaya, if they can find somebody to take on Senga, absolutely would love that for them as well. But they should not be relying on Tong to be their number one going into the year. I don't think they will. There's been some discussion about them even trading one of their more consistent starters in Peterson as well. Again, I'm just going to the free agent market and I'm trying to get at least one of the elite starters. For me, Framber Valdez has to be priority number one on the free agent market if I'm the New York Mets. But we shall see. We should trade Suzuki and Nico and sign Alex Bregman. I think Bregman is still their top target. We'll see if they get done, Mr. Wynn. I'm guessing you're a Chicago Cubs fan, but I do think your Cubbies are going to be waiting till the very end on Bregman, which could cost them the opportunity to sign Eugenio Suarez or another third baseman in free agency if his decision takes a while and he ultimately goes elsewhere. Shaw over to second and Owen Casey to play right. I would like that for them as well. Rangers sure could use a catcher. There have been several discussions about that as well. Miami Marlins have three catchers on their roster, looking to have one of their top prospects, Joe Mack, on the roster this season. That leaves Hicks and Ramirez still as the two catchers. They played over 130 games each last year, so both guys can handle a workload. They're going to be splitting time with Higashioka in Texas. For me, I would rather go after Ramirez because he's younger, still has the same control as well. But give me Ramirez. Hicks is 27. He was the bat I would have pursued at the deadline, but Ramirez is more the long-term answer I would prefer. Owen Casey is ready. Alcantara is ready. I would agree on Casey. Alcantara is, to me, just a half step behind Casey, but decently close. I would rather have Casey in my lineup right now if I had to choose just one. If, again, I just had to pick one. The top 40 prospects in Edie Platoon in left field. Jonathan Long, top prospect, was minor league player of the year, hit 350, doubles machine, Bo Bichette-like. The Cubs have some decent options, which, again, kind of underscores the recklessness of the Kyle Tucker trade. Why are you moving on from a Cam Smith and an Isaac Paredes? You could add both of those guys still in your lineup. Paredes could be your first baseman right now, or your third baseman, however you want to slice it up. You don't really have to move on from Nico Horner if you don't have to, or if you don't want to. Heck, you could have used some of these guys in trades to get you even more prospects or to get you a starting pitcher. But instead, you go after the all-in thing and go after Kyle Tucker. Obviously, didn't work out. Basically, World Series or bust. They landed on bust, which was kind of something we knew going into the year with how good the Dodgers were, how good the Phillies were. And then on the American League side, several other teams I put above the Cubs as well. Buster's other top 40 prospect who is ready. I agree as well. We don't need a mid guy in Suarez. I'm not saying that you don't need a mid guy as far as Suarez going to the Cubbies anyway. I'm just saying that Bregman's their top option and they might have to settle for Suarez. We'll see. As a platoon guy with Casey and PCA, right-handed and power ready, I'm looking to ease both into left field if possible. I don't want to ease them in. The one thing I don't like about teams whenever they try to bring up young guys is they ease them in. They say, oh, you're a left-handed hitter, you're going to play against righties, you're not going to see lefties. That's how you get so many bad habits into hitters. That's how you destroy a prospect from being able to handle left-handed pitching as a left-handed hitter. Stop it. Let him play every day. Let him be in the lineup. Let him learn. Deal with the struggles. That's what playing a rookie is. If you're not comfortable playing a rookie, then don't play him. Let him get the experience down at the minor level until you are ready to play him every single day, or darn near close to it. The last thing I want to see young players do is be platooned. You platoon them, you're limiting their ceiling. That's what happens almost every single time. Evan Carter came up as a guy who was playing right and left against right-handed pitchers and left-handed pitchers in the minor leagues. He gets up to the majors, has a great month and a half going to the World Series, ultimately doesn't play very well against left-handed pitchers, but he's only in the lineup just a little bit in those games against them. Ultimately, I think he goes 1 for 14 over the final week through the rest of the postseason. That's 14 at-bats that he's getting maybe one a game every 3 or 4 days against a lefty. And we saw what happened to him when he got into the back to the lineup the next year. They platooned him. They didn't play him against lefties. He got bad habits against lefties. Couldn't handle the pitching. Hopefully that gets better, but that's just one thing. That's just one player example. There's so many I could give you, but the last thing I want to see is young players be platooned. If you don't have the cojones to play them every single day out there in the outfield and deal with their struggles at the plate, the inefficiency out in the field, the poor routes, then let them learn those things down at the minors until you are ready to play them. Don't ruin them just because you want to platoon them. I mean, I really hope Casey could be a superstar someday. But the last thing you want to, or the last thing he's going to become is a superstar if you just platoon him and sit him against lefties. Murakami is a left-handed third baseman you like for the Cubs. I think they are in there for him. I think the Mets, I think the Yankees, Padres are a team that I would also keep an eye on as well. But he's got a hefty market. Akamoto is going to do very well in free agency as well. Where should the Japanese pitcher sign? My guess still is probably either the Mets or Padres. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cubs get this deal done as well. But I think those are the most likely options at this point. The Phillies, platoon, Marsh, and Johos? I know that Bader was there platooning for part-time, but I'm talking about young guys. Like we're talking fresh out of the minor leagues, getting their first taste of the majors. Alejandro Osuna for last year for the Texas Rangers was playing really well. Was their best bat in spring training. Kind of surprised everybody out of spring training. Obviously, he was not expected to make the major league roster and didn't. Played well in the minors up until the point when they called him up, and then he played once every 5 games at certain points last year, and you just saw his ability with the bat just do this because he didn't have that playing time. I don't want to see that for Casey. I really like the player. I'm advocating for the player getting the playing time and being comfortable with living with those mistakes. Your veterans in the lineup hopefully can carry you. Hopefully you're able to go after the pitching that you need by allowing these young guys to come up and play cost effective. You should have the money to add the starting pitching that you need to be able to deal with struggles offensively from Casey if and when they come. Rojas, okay, thank you. That makes more sense. Okay. Are the Yankees still in on Imai and Akamoto? They are. I haven't heard them out on any player pretty much so far. The Yankees, how do I put this? They are waiting on Kyle Tucker to a certain extent. They're waiting on Bellinger to a certain extent. But they're also cognizant of what Hal Steinbrenner has said about wanting to be fiscally responsible with the money that they do spend, I guess is the best way I could put it. They don't necessarily want to go, throwing bad money at a player. They want to make sure the money is worth it. And I think there's several players that they need to be looking at right now. Bullpen's got to be a priority for them. Bringing back Bellinger, to me, has to be a priority. If you get Murakami or Tucker, fantastic. But to me, those two probably be the biggest guys I'd be trying to add to the offense. In addition, of course, to Bellinger. Jay Palmer, welcome in. John, welcome back. I'm late, but what is the news on the O's and Gore? Still kind of in a holding pattern there. Nothing as of late. Thing I've seen with guys like Jordan Wicks, who was a top 100 great starting pitcher, Jim Chiantos, they get blocked at AAA and it affects them mentally and they fall. True, you don't want to leave them languishing at AAA too long. If you think they're ready, then let them play at the big league level is my biggest thing. Clear the pathway. Don't necessarily let them just, don't just let them sit there and take the position and not have anybody there if and when they fail. When they fail, say you give them 2 months up at the big league level and they're hitting 150 with, 4 times the strikeouts to walks. At that point, you say, all right, you got your first taste. The big leagues, go back down to the minors, make an adjustment, learn. We got this other guy to fill in until you're ready to come back up. When he comes back up, he plays every day again. I'm not letting the other guy take his at-bats when he's on the active roster. Every single day should be a learning day for him, whether it's at the big league level or in the minors. The days off that he gets at the big league level should be maybe 1 or 2 games a week at most. But I see too many times managers not trust their young guys enough, and that's how you really ruin top-end prospects, is not letting them get on the field and actually perform on the field. You can only learn so much with a clipboard in your hand in football. You can only learn so much, watching in the dugout in Major League Baseball. The bench can only do so much for you. At a certain point, you start getting splinters. You start not playing as well. You start trying to force the issue. You start losing confidence. Hey, if I don't make this play, I'm not going to be in the lineup the next day. Those are things players, young players specifically, worry about. As you get older, those things matter to you less and less because you're going to be on the team the next day and the next day. But young guys, that kind of thing can spiral, and when you don't have them in the lineup every day and learning every single day, that can really cause problems, especially for top-end prospects. All right, let's see if we can catch up on a few of the headlines from around Major League Baseball today. There was the two arms, Pipio and Baz, that we talked about at the top of our video, possibly going to the Diamondbacks in exchange for Marte. We might even look at that trade here in just a little bit. Saw some more headlines about the Mets possibly looking into the idea of platooning Goldschmidt. Again, former Yankee going to the Mets seems to be a theme the last several years. But and platooning with Jeff McNeil over there at first. We shall see. We mentioned the Royals signing Lane Thomas, the Orioles making the deal official with Pete Alonso as well. We talked about Preller and Fernando Tatis not being available. The Braves getting Robert Suarez to help in their bullpen 3 for 45 to be their 8th inning setup man as well. And then the kind of the wrap up from yesterday is the Braves signing Mike Yastrzemski. All right, let's look at some of the more recent stories, see if they have anything else for us. Some smaller deals, the A's getting Mark Leiter. We mentioned that one as well. Appreciate you guys mentioning that in the chat with us as well. Nothing too crazy there. Let's go ahead and get over to the trade machine here and let me clear this out. We're going to restart it just because I want it to load faster. And let's go down to the Rays and Diamondbacks. Marte, we know, is really high value, 69 value currently. So what do the Rays have to give? Baz would be the top guy they mentioned. And Pipio, that actually is pretty dang close. If those two are the starters that are going back the other direction, that's a really good starting place here. Do the Diamondbacks have any bad money they could send back the other way to offload some salary? Burns, Rodriguez. That would be interesting. You free up a 40-man spot and a spot in your rotation, and you save 23 each of the next 2 seasons. I think the Rays would even take that money on for Ketel Marte. Say you make that deal, you're 6 over. Would you even throw in something else just to make them take that money off your hands? Drake in the bullpen. Love Mitch Bratt. He's going to be good. Saul Frank in the bullpen. No, I think you probably go with this deal. Maybe if you're the Diamondbacks, you throw in, I don't know, $5 million just to make it work for the salary purposes right now. We'll just do that to kind of make it a little bit more even, but we'll validate the trade, post it. It's not too bad. So Bellinger could get a 3-year deal from the Cubs, but 50% of that deal would be paid this year since we wouldn't pay 50% more than over the threshold. Cubs are going to do a second threshold on 1-year deals, though. Big money, 1 year. How do I put this? I just don't think the Cubs are going to do mega long-term deals. I think the one player they would do that for right now, or at least may have to do it for, is Alex Bregman. But starting pitchers, I don't think they're going to do it for. Same with Kyle Tucker. I think their preference would be to bring in Alex Bregman because of the young guys we mentioned, Casey and others that will be coming up from the minors relatively quickly. They don't necessarily have a need for Kyle Tucker at that position. It also kind of underscores the recklessness of their trade last year to bring him in and sending out Cam Smith, who could have been a long-term answer for them at one of their infield spots. Let's see here. Rays should do trade for James Triantos to play second base. Most obvious move this offseason to me. To me, the Rays are looking to move on from Brandon Lau most specifically right now. That deal was very close at the end of the winter meetings. I would not be surprised if that deal gets done sometime in the next couple of days. So as far as Brendan Lau, I think that's probably the most obvious move that's going to be coming is Brendan Lau to the Pirates. I don't necessarily love the move for the Pirates. I get they need to upgrade their offense, but they have a couple of guys already that can play second base. I'd be looking to upgrade at other spots around the diamond, but maybe you put Lau over there at DH. That's always a possibility as well. But I like this trade so far. Marte, they get 2 starting pitchers out of it. They get off of the money Eduardo Rodriguez and the money to Ketel Marte. They could seriously go out there and add pieces this offseason if you're the Diamondbacks. They could turn around and sign a second baseman or go out and trade for somebody if they wanted to at second base. Go after a Cronenworth and take on the money. There's lots of options if this type of a trade ultimately does happen. Kind of like that one. It's not too bad. Who do I think do I think trades for Jarren Duran? I think this same trade could work with Jarren Duran coming back the other way, but they would want starting pitching coming back as well. And if this is the trade that the Rays decide to ultimately offer, they might ultimately get the deal done. But as far as Jarren Duran specifically, if I was trying to find a home for him, Monty close to deal with Brewers. Montgomery, you mean? I think that'd be a great depth signing for them. Isn't he injured still, though? Don't see it on from the top guys yet, but let me go ahead and answer Lucas's question here. Where could we see Duran go? Well, if I'm the Red Sox, I'm looking for a massive upgrade one way or the other. First base, third base, second base, I'm open to all three. Say they don't go, or say if they don't get Ketel Marte, they could go to the Cardinals and go after a Donovan. Duran's value is 45. Donovan's value is, I think it's less than. Yeah, 32. I'm not sure you go that route. Where else could you go? I think you'd be looking big fish here. Who needs an outfielder? The Royals really could use this type of player. I think he'd be a fantastic fit there. I doubt he would go there based off of what the Rays or the Royals would have to trade. But I'm just curious to see what it would look like. Because I think he would fit great with Kansas City. Cole Ragans maybe coming back the other way. That would be interesting. No, doesn't really fit. They don't have the pieces for it now that I look. I didn't think they did, but I just wanted to make sure. Angels are looking to get better. I wouldn't do it via trade, but again, since when have they listened to me? Anything that works for the Red Sox? Not really. That's what I was wondering. I didn't see the Monty to the Brewers stuff. It'd be nice if the Phillies could get Fairbanks to be the setup man. I would, but don't know why Marte is rumored to the Phillies. Kind of agree there. The Phillies are kind of intractable with their position right now. Sources: Brewers are closing in on a one-year deal with free agent Montgomery due to the entire 25 season due to Tommy John surgery. Brewers were hoping Montgomery will bounce back from that. Yeah. Where are you seeing that, though? That's what I'm curious about. Am I missing it? I like Jordan Montgomery. I was kind of hoping he'd end up back in Texas or going to the Angels and working with Mike Maddox again. Maybe I'm just not scrolling far enough. Red Sox need a second baseman. Well, they signed Campbell. Campbell didn't exactly work out great outside of that first week of the season. Other second baseman, I wouldn't do it, but you could do Josh Smith from Texas. You could do Lau from Tampa Bay. But if you're looking second base or first, I think that is where you could get in the Astros. Is Christian Walker a negative asset on this roster? He's got to be, right? Yeah, negative 25. I still think he's a way better player than this, but do they have anything that would even work? Not really. Duran for McNeil from the Mets? That's not... I don't think that's anywhere close to the value. Northern, appreciate you joining us. Louder the Red Sox makes sense. It does. It is in division, though. Just trying to think if there's any other team that has a second baseman or a first baseman that would make sense to go to the to go to the Red Sox here. Twins, they could do some selling here, but they have the same type of position player available if they did make him available, Buxton. Tigers, do you help one of your toughest, or do you help some of your toughest competition in the American League to get to the World Series? I doubt. Royals, like I said, I think it'd be a great fit, but they don't really have the pieces to do it. Pirates would love some offense. They do have pitching to burn. If they sent Ashcraft, and I would trade O'Neal Cruz, but I don't think they would. Maybe they do a Burrows. No. Let's do Hunter Barco. Would that be enough for Jarren Duran? To me, I would still hold on to Duran for something bigger. Ketel Marte seems to be the right piece, but I'm just not sure the teams match up quite as well as others, I'll put it that way. Brendan Donovan would be a nice fit in Boston. It's kind of my thoughts as well. Also hearing Nico Horner in the trade rumors that him or Shaw could be moved to the Cubs at a third baseman. I do think they will move someone off of that roster. Does it have to be either one of those two players? No, I think there are other ways to move those guys around. Letting one of those guys become a super utility player and just giving a guy off every so often, like one day you give off the second baseman a day off and let him be the DH that day, and so forth and so on down the line you go. Maybe you trade one of your outfielders to free up that DH spot as a result. That'd be one way to do it. Let's see here. So one thing I wanted to do is just kind of have a little bit of fun before we call it quits to this evening anyway. I want to go over to our free agent list. I want to look at the entire list real quick and just kind of play devil's advocate here. Where are we going to see these players ultimately land? Actually, we're going to go off of their top 50 with their predictions, just to kind of update and see where everybody's at. Kyle Tucker's still out there, obviously. Winter meetings were a bust. He's going to take his meetings over the next week or so. I do think he signs around Christmas. Scott Boras basically having his holding court today, or at least this morning anyway, talking Cody Bellinger, and that they may ultimately wait for Tucker to sign. So his market, even though it's closer to being resolved, they may wait for Tucker anyway, just to see if those teams that miss on Tucker want to up the ante anyway for Bellinger. So as far as Tucker, I doubt the Dodgers get it done. Blue Jays to me makes so much sense. The Giants do as well. They're adamant about adding this offseason, but I think they're looking a little bit too strongly at pitching for me to take them as seriously as I thought I was going to for Kyle Tucker. So the Yankees to me have got to be in this discussion along with the Blue Jays. Phillies are a no. Mets have got to be in consideration as well after losing Pete Alonso. But I'm going to still stick with my prediction from the winter meetings is that he goes to the Blue Jays. Where do you guys think he goes? Pay Owen Casey? I mean, the younger you get him, the cheaper that contract extension is going to be. Speaking of contract extensions, expect one soon for the Texas Rangers and Wyatt Langford. I think that one's coming down the pike soon. Are the Yankees going to go after Tucker or Peralta? Why not both? I think Peralta's name is certainly out there for a lot of different teams right now. I just think he's ultimately going to stay there in Milwaukee unless they get bowled over. I just don't see it. But could they get Peralta? I think if they bowl him over, possibly. Ranger Suarez, where do you think he goes? And could the Phillies bring him back the longer he is out there? I think he goes back to Philadelphia this whole time. I never really thought he was leaving. Proven postseason performer. I think he'd be a great get for a team like San Francisco. I think he'd be great in Washington. Both are teams that have significant payroll that they can spend this year. And I think both would be great fits. But I think he's probably best back in Philadelphia as their number 2 going into the year. You're a Jays fan. Tucker doesn't fit the Jays. I mean, he kind of takes over as the bat, if you will, for Bo Bichette. Bichette, I think, probably fits positionally a little bit better, but I think Bichette's leaving anyway this offseason. That's why I think they're either going to sign one of Suarez, who signed with the Atlanta Braves, or Kyle Tucker. Obviously, vast differences in money, but I thought they were going to do one of the two. Now I think Kyle Tucker's the move that they're trying to get done. I wouldn't be surprised if another team does outbid him, but I think Kyle Tucker would be the defining move of this offseason for the Blue Jays if they were able to get it done. Wyatt Langford is Justin Upton, and I love that comp. I do actually like that comp, but I do think Wyatt Langford has infinitely more speed than J-Up ever had. Far better glove as well. I love Justin Upton with that swing. I thought when he signed, what was it, with the Diamondbacks or Padres, one of those stops there, whenever he was a free agent, I really wanted the Rangers to get him, and ultimately it didn't happen. Lucky, honestly, because his career kind of went down the tubes right after that deal got signed. Let's kind of keep going down the list here. 2 is Bo Bichette. Everybody still thinks the Blue Jays are on this, or when they made this article, was the Blue Jays. I still think the Blue Jays could be a fit for him, but I still think that the team that's going to outbid the Blue Jays is going to be the Nationals for his services. I just think there's a hole over there at third base, over at short if they move on from C.J. Abrams, that they could easily fit Bo Bichette in. And don't rule out the Atlanta Braves either. I think they view him more as a non-shortstop at this point. But if they can't find a better solution at short than Dubon or Profar or whoever else they want to throw over there, I think Bichette could find his way to Atlanta. Kyle Tucker's wife will pick where he goes. We'll see. We'll see. Are the Marlins going to trade a starting pitcher? I believe they trade 2 starters and a reliever, and I think they'll trade a catcher as well. I believe Upton signed with the Tigers. Okay, I couldn't remember. I just remember him getting bounced around from a lot of different teams for a period of time there. Braves, Padres, Diamondbacks, I think is where he started. Tigers. But as far as Bo Bichette, if I had to guess where he would go right now, I'm still leaning to the Nationals. I think 3 on this list was Dylan Cease. 4 is Murakami. I've heard basically no team specifically tied to him the last couple of days. Tells me this might take a little bit of time. This might be one of the signings that gets done between Christmas and New Year's. But the Mets have got to be kicking the tires on this one after losing out on Pete Alonso. 8 years, 180 is the expectation here. Tells me that's probably going to be 8 years, 200 when it's all said and done. They don't like giving long-term deals to first base DH types, but if you view him more as a third base, would Stearns be able to justify the expense on Murakami rather than Pete Alonso? Younger player, similar power. Do they go that route? Angels, yes, I remember them. I think the Mets have really got to be serious about Murakami at this point. Bregman, now that Seager's staying in Texas for sure, I just don't think there's a fit naturally with Texas and Bregman. I thought there was a devil's advocate way they could get there if they moved on from Seager. That's not happening. Cubs, to me, are the team that's going to be all the way down to the end on this one. Tigers, to me, sound like they would love to have him, but they don't want to give him the long-term deal. Bregman sounds like he prefers playing in Detroit, but does he go back to Boston? Does he go to Detroit on a shorter-term deal that he doesn't want? Or does he get the long-term deal that he wants from the Chicago Cubs, but maybe not necessarily the high dollar figure? Lots of different options here. Does he go to San Francisco? I doubt. Does he go to the Nationals? I think there's a chance, but I don't think they're necessarily a contending team yet. If they add more pieces around him before he signs, then I could believe Washington for Bregman, but I just don't buy it right now. I think he's far too competitive. So Boston, Detroit, Chicago, the 3 finalists last year, I think will probably be the 3 finalists this year. And I don't think Blue Jays will necessarily be in this market either, like they were at the very end of last year. When will Tucker and Bellinger sign? I would guess Tucker before Christmas. I would guess Bellinger sometime in the beginning of January at this point. Huge step back for signing Bo as he wants to play shortstop. If he wants to play shortstop, he's going to have to show that he can still handle the position. He's really talented, but his health has been an issue. Not necessarily if he can handle it with the glove and so forth, but Health has got to be paramount. Can he handle the position defensively? Of course, has got to be in that discussion. But for me, he showed the flexibility to play second. He showed the flexibility he can play all over the diamond with the Blue Jays when he came back. And I don't see why he would be reticent if it meant getting the dollar figure he wanted from another club in his free agency. So we'll see. Gore from Washington, do they trade him? I'm leaning towards no. I think that one's got a lot of smoke, but I think they add in free agency and ultimately try to build a contending team. I don't think it'll be contending for a division this year, but I think there's every chance the Nationals could be there in the wild card discussion if they hold on to Gore and add at this year's in this year's offseason. Gore, good luck talking to their front office. It was ugly there at the deadline. I mean, the Nationals kind of set themselves up for spending this year. That was kind of what last year was all about. Kind of keeping the decks clear, allowing their young guys to either prove it or not. Those guys that did prove it, they will stay in their starting spots. The ones that didn't, obviously, will be supplemented with free agents. So we shall see. Do you think since the Rangers haven't spent no money that they're holding out for one big free agent signing above $20 million? I doubt it that they go above $20 million at this point. I think they're trying to fill so many different holes. If they find a way to fill some of those holes on the cheap, say they add their catcher via trade and he's making league minimum instead of having to pay $7 or $8 million to a catcher. If they add their closer on a free or in a trade anyway and offload some salary or at least don't take on a massive amount of salary in that trade, I think there's a good chance that they could spend on a $20+ million item. Is there a player that I think they prefer more than anybody else? I think there's a couple of the international players that they're looking at. Okamoto is the one I keep hearing them connected to. I think the main reason for that one is because of the struggles of Josh Smith. Josh Young anyway, his struggles. Smith struggles in the second half. The opening out second base. They could play Okamoto over there, and if Young plays well, fantastic. If Okamoto plays well, fantastic. If Smith plays well, fantastic. But then they would have their insurance policy if one of those guys started to struggle. Then, of course, you get into the discussion about Luis Suarez and other names. I doubt they ultimately end up with Suarez, but I know Skip Schumacher would love to have him. We shall see. I guess Bellinger to the Cubs, Tucker to the Cubs, Tucker to the Blue Jays, Happ traded to the Dodgers. Out of those four names, I'm going to guess Tucker to the Blue Jays. I'm going to guess Bellinger. It's hard to see him getting out of that New York market. I'm going to say Bellinger back to the Yankees. Ian Happ gets traded probably to a team like Dodgers. Makes some sense, yes, but I'm going to say he goes to the Royals as they try to upgrade their offense. Lane Thomas, yes, helps, but Ian Happ is a significantly better player. How many trades do you think happen this offseason? We've already seen a bunch of really small trades, but if you're talking like big time trades that we would consider real trades, not just Rule 5 draft pick trades or minor league trades or hey, I'll trade you my back end reliever who's thrown 20 innings in his major league career to you guys for roster flexibility to clear off a roster spot. If we take all those other deals out and just leave the real baseball trades, the ones that you'll see on your scroll, those kinds of things, I would say we're in the neighborhood of probably not counting like the Sonny Gray one that's already happened. I would guess we're going to see at least 15 good trades before we get to opening day. I feel pretty comfortable with 15 because I think there's very good chance Marte gets moved. That's one. I think Lau gets moved in the next couple of days. That's 2. Cabrera, 3. I do think there's a good chance Happ moves. That's 4. C.J. Abrams, I think, does get moved. That's 5. And I'm already at 5, and there's still several other options out there. But I'd say there's at least 15 real significant moves. As far as like massive, aircraft carrier type trades like Aaron Judge or Corey Seager or Juan Soto or Fernando Tatis Jr. or players along those lines. How many of those trades do we see? To me, Marte would count as 1. I think he's that level of player at this point. I would count him as 1. I'll say we get, I want to say 3, but something's telling me 4. I'm going to stick to 3. I'll say we get 3 massive trades between now and opening day. Sonny Gray is not massive, by the way. I'm talking like middle of the order, changes your win total from, say, 75 to 85 in just one fell swoop. That kind of a trade. We're not talking about a, as good as Johan Duran was for the, Jaron Duran anyway was for the, Johan Duran, the closer from the Twins. As many wins as he gave to Philadelphia, it wasn't 10-win difference. We're probably talking 2, maybe 3-win difference between what Philadelphia was utilizing and Duran coming in. That was still a really nice big trade, but it wasn't the big one that we're waiting for. Marte to me would qualify. Nick Castellanos doesn't get traded or released by the Phillies. There was an article today about the Phillies literally begging teams. I mean, on their knees, begging teams to take him off their hands. I mean, if they're willing to pay down the entirety of that contract right now, I mean, you take Jock Peterson, you pay all what's past Jock Peterson's salary, I'll give you Jock Peterson in return for Nick Castellanos. Is it worth it to you, Philadelphia, or would you rather just release him? Probably just release him. I think that's the type of return Nick Castellanos is going to get at this point. Sad, even though he was a decent player for them last year, there was no added benefit to having him in their lineup last year. He was a net neutral player, which doesn't really do anything for you when he's playing 150 games. At this point, I think they'd be better off just cutting bait and moving on, and just seeing if they can get some of their young guys more playing time at that spot, or signing somebody small that's a little bit better performer at this point than Nick Castellanos. But I think the writing is on the wall. The Phillies would really love to be out of the business of Nick Castellanos. All right, appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Heading over to X real quick just to see if anything else is happening at this moment. Let me just double check. Padres president on the Tatis situation. He's somebody that we're not talking about. However you want to say it. If you want to say that's untouchable, you can say that. Basically tells me that the team doesn't necessarily view any player as untouchable, but he's about as close to it as he could possibly be on that roster. Alrighty, any Astros news? Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate you joining us. Astros are trying to unload one of their 2 infielders, Paredes and Walker. Walker didn't have a great first year down there in Houston. I think that would be their preference to move on from him. Alonso going to the Orioles actually, I think, helps the market for a guy like Christian Walker. But they would love to use that money elsewhere. Saw a couple of different articles where they basically cited that they're paying about $30 million total to Paredes and Walker combined, that they have too many infielders now with the addition of Carlos Correa. I mean, they needed every single one of those guys last year because of the injury issues. And I don't think it's going to be completely solved this year. They will have injuries again. I think they need that depth. But we shall see. As far as Walker, him having a down year last year, I think there were a lot of factors that kind of went into that. Adjusting, to a new ballpark, the American League, all those kinds of things. I think all of those things had tiny little effects on him. I think he's going to be having. I think he's going to have a really nice second year there with Houston. I think they just need to bide their time. If they don't, the move of Alonso to the Orioles actually still keeps other teams that are looking for a first baseman in the market for Christian Walker. The question is, will they have to pay down some of the salary? All those kinds of things. What could the return possibly be? Would it even be worth it to the Astros at that point? What would they use that money on elsewhere? Or if they did have that money freed up, or would they be better off just continuing to hold on to Walker and hoping for a better year? Those would be the things I would be looking at. You heard Baz or Williams for Paredes. I did hear those rumors, but I think the Rays right now are focusing on Ketel Marte. Obviously a significantly better player. A little bit surprising that both players were on the Diamondbacks a year and a half ago, but here we are. But Shane Baz sounds like he could be on the move somewhere for the Rays as they try to improve that offense just a little bit. Do the Phillies trade Matt Strahm for cap relief and then go after Fairbanks? Possible. I mean, any type of cap relief or salary relief for them would be good. But I don't think that's necessarily something they're actively looking to do. I think they're still looking to run it back from what they had last year and see if they can roll their dice one more time and see if they can actually win. But, all right, appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll be live at our normal time tomorrow at 9 o'clock. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll be back to work on Saturday, unfortunately, so we'll probably have our live on Saturday. We're probably going to do it a little bit earlier, so probably around 7-ish, if I had to guess. Got some plans this weekend, so I'm going to try to, horseshoe it in there on Saturday. Not sure if we're going to do a stream on Sunday. We might do kind of a general sports stream on Sunday, talking about the college football playoff, what's going on in the NBA with the Cup and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of some general updates. Kind of just a normal, kind of a chill stream for you guys. So if you guys want to join us on that or if you guys have interest in a stream on Sunday, let me know. But all right. I think that's going to do it for me. Y'all have a good one out there. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Thank you guys for hitting that like and subscribe. The hearts in the chat, I do notice those, so thank you for sending them to us. It does help increase the volume in our channel as well. The more you guys interact with the channel, the better the chat does get. I really do appreciate that. Those of you who have sent super chats in the past, Sean, I know you've sent 2 in the last couple of days. Thank you so much for supporting our channel and supporting me as well. Just really do appreciate it. Y'all have a good night out there. Stay safe, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 9 o'clock.